Hi YouTube, I'm William Bishop, and today I'm here to tell you about how doing this one thing can dramatically improve your investment performance and what it means for you. In this video, I'm going to explain what this one thing is. I will give you an illustration of what is possible. I'm also going to provide the equation for you so you can play around at home with a calculator if that's your thing. And I'm going to give you implications for you and your investments. So without further ado, what is this one thing I'm telling you about? Well, the one thing is doing nothing. You might be thinking to yourself, that's easy, sounds too good to be true. Let me explain. So firstly, I'm going to tell you about simple interest. Let's imagine a situation where you can earn 10% per year. Doesn't matter how much you invest. You're always going to earn a rate of 10% per year. Let's say you've got £1,000. So £1,000 invested at a rate of 10% per year. After 1 year, you're going to earn £100. That's 10% of 1,000. After that year, you take your £100, you can spend it, put it under the mattress, do whatever you like with it, but it's not invested. You start year 2 with that £1,000 that you originally put in year 1. 10% again means that after year 2, you've earned £100, and again, you withdraw it. Do what you like with it. You repeat this process every year for 10 years. You have this situation in the table, £1,000 and in 10% per year for 10 years with simple interest. On the left hand side we have the year column, 1 through to 10. Next column in, starting capital, £1,000 each year. You start with £1,000 each year because you've earned, in the interest column, you've earned £100 each year, and you can see in the withdrawal column, you've withdrew that £100 each year. Your ending capital is always £1,000. At the bottom of the interest column, I've added it all up for you. £100 each year for 10 years is £1,000. So you've started with 1,000, you've ended with 1,000, you've also received income of 1,000. 1,000 plus 1,000 is 2,000. You've doubled your money. You might be thinking, that's great, double my money. But what if you're in a different situation? What if your income is large enough that you don't need to take your income from your investments for your everyday living expenses? The income from your investments, you can leave that to grow. And that's what we mean by compound interest. So you have the same situation, the same opportunity. You have £1,000 where you can invest it at a rate of 10% per year. In year 1, you're going to earn your £100, just as the same as the previous example. But in year 2, because you haven't withdrew that £100, you're going to start year 2 with £1,100. Now, you're earning 10% again, but this time you're not earning £100, you're earning £110. That's 10% of your 1,000 and 10% of the £100 you earned last year. Put that together, you've got £110. The end of year 2, you have £1,210 to start the next year with. By leaving it, you're effectively doing nothing. And you can do nothing for the next 10 years. And this table shows you what you can achieve by doing nothing. It's the same table as before, but in that withdrawal column, you will see every year 0. You're leaving your money invested, you're leaving it to compound. The starting capital from 1 year is the ending capital of the previous year. I'd like to draw your attention to year 8, ending capital, £2,143 and change. Now this is the same investment as before, same £1,000 earning 10% per year, but now you've more than doubled your money after 8 years, whereas previously it took you 10 years. That's because in the previous example you were withdrawing money each year, taking it out, and it's not earning money for you. By leaving it in, you can double your money in a quicker amount of time. I'd also like to point out, for the interest column for year 9, £214.36. That's more than double the interest you earned in the first year. It's not because you're taking more risk, it's not because you're in a different investment, you're in exactly the same investment as before. You're earning double because your starting capital is double. Your starting capital is double because you've let it compound. Now, if tables aren't your thing, let me show you in a graph. This is simple versus compound interest over 10 years. On the horizontal axis, we have time from 1 through to 10 years. On the vertical axis, we have the value of your portfolio. The pink line is simple interest. The purple line is compound interest. Now, this is not the ending value after each year for both lines. This is the total return. That's why simple interest in this example is going up. You've earned £100 each year. You've started with £1,000. So after 10 years, you have your £2,000. You may have spent that £1,000, so you haven't really got the £2,000, but your total return is £2,000. That's your £1,000 interest and your £1,000 original capital. Now, compound interest. You do actually have this still in your portfolio because you've left it there to grow. As you will see, there's not much change between those two lines in the first 4 years. However, by year 10, there is a bit of a gap there, and that gap gets bigger from year 4 onwards. It crosses the 2,000 line between year 7 and year 8. That's the point where you've doubled your money, and you can see the visual representation that you've doubled your money earlier than in the previous example. Now, you might be thinking, on the earlier slides, you said dramatically different. It will make a dramatically different effect on my portfolio, on my personal situation. Now, you might be looking at that graph and thinking, that's not dramatically different, that's a bit of a change. But this is only a graph over 10 years. Now, my personal situation is going to be different to your personal situation, but I'm a 40-year-old man, and my longest time horizon, my longest long-term goal is my retirement. Currently, state pension age in the UK is 68. It's probably going to change before I retire. For argument's sake, let's say it's going to go up to 70. For me, that's 30 years away. So, logically, I'm going to think, what's going to happen in this situation in 30 years rather than 10 years? So this is the same example as before, but now we're looking over 30 years instead of 10 years. Horizontal axis is time, vertical axis is the value of your portfolio. Now remember, I'm talking about the total return. So while the value of your portfolio is what you can see there for the compound interest, the purple, it's not actually the value of your portfolio if you follow the simple interest method. In this situation, I've gone along for 30 years. You've earned £100 each year with simple interest. 100 times 30 is 3,000, plus your original 1,000, that's 4,000. That's what you can see on that graph there, 4,000 after 30 years. For the compound interest example, after 30 years you have £17,449 and 40 pence. £17,449 and 40 pence compared to 4,000. That's more than 4 times the difference in the same investment, taking the same risk. You just took a different approach. 4 times difference, personally, I would say that's a dramatic difference. And so by understanding this concept, by letting your investment compound rather than taking the money each year if you don't need to, by following those steps you can have a dramatic effect on your investment, on your personal wealth. And in 30 years time, you might be happy with yourself for doing so. I'm going to run through the equation now so that you can play around with a calculator at home if you want to. I recommend it. When I was learning maths at school, I'd always run through the equations so I fully understood them. If you don't want to, it's fine, you don't have to. Don't be alarmed by the equations you can see on the screen right now. It's not as complex as that. Here's the equation for compound interest. So in my example, we've gone with £1,000 invested with a 10% annual return. So the equation for compound interest, we have 1000 times 1 plus r to the power of n. In this situation, r is 10%. N, for myself, is 30 years. N, for you, can be anything you want it to be. So I haven't put a value in there. Let's go from 1000 times 1 plus r to the power of n to the next part. 1000 times 1 plus 0.1 to the power of n. Here, I've taken that 10% and substituted it for r. 0.1 as a decimal is the same as 10%. Next part of the equation, 1000 times 1.1 to the power of n. It's important for you to do the maths in the brackets before you do any other part of the equation. So we have 1.1 to the power of n times by 1000. If you don't know how to do this, here I've put on a picture of my calculator that's built into my computer. And I've put a big arrow to the x to the power of y button. That is the button you need to do this equation. Again, do the number in the brackets first. So we have 1.1. Type 1.1 into the calculator, press x to the power of y, put in the number 30, you can press equals, you don't have to, times it by 1000, and you will get a very long number, but when you round it to 2 decimal places, it will be £17,449.40. Try it out after the video, have a practice run. If you get that result, you know you're doing the equation correctly, and then you can change around the number n, the interest rate, or the starting capital. Implications. What does this mean for you? That's the important thing, that's why you're here. You might be asking yourself, will you earn much more after 30 years if you earn an extra 1% per year? Let's have a look. Here's the graph again. Time on the horizontal axis, value on the vertical axis. This time the lines are just the compound interest because you should only be interested in compound interest. You should not be interested in simple interest unless you need the income from your investments. If you don't need the income, please let it compound every year. After a period of 30 years, you should be much better off. If you're earning a rate of 10% per year, after 30 years, putting in £1,000 at the very start, you'll have £17,449.20. If you just go 1% higher, if you're earning 11% per year, after 30 years with the same starting capital, you will have £22,892.41. As you can see from that graph, the first, let's say, 8 years, there's not too much daylight between those two lines. The gap between the two lines increases as time increases, and after 30 years, you've got an extra £5,400 plus a bit more, just by having an extra 1% return per year. Do I need to aim for returns much greater than 10% to make a difference to my situation? You might be looking at the 11% example in the previous graph and you're thinking, okay, that's nice, but it's not enough for me. After the effects of inflation, perhaps it's not enough for you. I don't know your situation, so I can't help you there. What I can tell you is that this example only involves putting in an amount at the very start of your journey. If you're able to, if you have extra income that you don't need for anything else, sure, invest it if you want to. And if you're earning that 10 or 11%, but you've added to it from time to time, you're going to have more than that £22,000. As to whether you need to aim for returns much greater, if you don't have extra money to invest, let me take the extreme example. An extreme example, you'd take your £1,000 and put them all into lottery tickets. Now, this is not what you want to do with your retirement nest egg. It could be brilliant for you. You could win the jackpot. Fantastic. It could go, at the other end, it could go very sour and you could end up with nothing. By taking too much risk, you run the risk of ending up with nothing. I know people say, greater risk, greater return, and that's true. But without remembering that with greater risk comes a greater chance of harm, then you're not taking any risk at all. You're ignoring the negative aspects and just favouring the positive aspects. So yes, greater risk does lead to greater return, but it's very important, especially if it's your retirement nest egg, to manage those risks. Do you need to go for much higher than 10% to make a difference? My personal portfolio over the past 15 years has earned a return of 14.87% return. That's the geometric mean return. If you're not sure what geometric mean return means, after this video, put it into your search engine, have a look for an explainer. 14.87%. Let's have a look what that would do to your £1,000 over a period of 30 years. We have the values from before, £17,449.40p. 11%, £22,892.41. And now, the other line, 14.87% per year results in £64,002.44. That's from the same £1,000, but instead of 10 or 11%, it's earning 14.87%. Compare it to 10% returns, you've earned almost 4 times the amount of money. You end up with almost 4 times the amount of money you do with 14.87 compared to 10% per year. But you've only took on an extra 4.87% return. You're not earning 4 times or nearly 4 times the amount of money each year. So, in conclusion to that question, do you need to take on more risk? You can take on more risk. You don't have to take on too much risk because it's important to your future situation that you don't. Taking on an extra 4.87% from 10 to 14.87 will give you almost 4 times as much money. Now, before we all get carried away and think we're going to be multimillionaires, let me give you a few words of caution. The 14.87% return I've used in my example previously is the portfolio performance for my portfolio invested in the stock market over the last 15 years. The 14.87% represents the geometric mean return of my portfolio. But as you're probably well aware, the stock market does not move higher in a straight line. I'm not going to make 14.87% return each and every year. It's just not going to happen. It's unrealistic to think so. Some years I've made more than that. Other years I've made less than 14.87%. And in some years I've lost money on the stock market. Those 15 years I've told you about, that goes back to 2006. I've used 15 years in this video rather than the 5-year horizon in a previous video because I'm talking about the next 30 years. In that last 15 years, we've had the financial crisis, the credit crunch. We didn't have that in the last 5 years. The last 5 years of the stock market is not representative of what could happen over the next 30 years. But in the last 15 years, we had the worst time in the stock market since the Great Recession in the 30s, the 1930s. That's more representative of what could happen in the next 30 years. However, it might not happen again, or we might get what happens in the next 30 years might be worse than what has happened in the last 15. We've certainly had some good years in the stock market. So past performance should not be taken as an indication of future results. I've used the example of 14.87% as an illustration. It should not be taken as a guarantee of future performance. When you invest in the stock market, your capital is at risk. The value of your investments may go down as well as up, and you could get back less than your original investment. I hope this video has been useful to you. I hope you have comments. If you do have comments, you can give them in the comment section here, or if you'd rather, you can search for me, William Bishop or WM Bishop on eToro. You can send me a message on Twitter. My handle is William M. Bishop, or you can email me. My email address is on the screen. If you want to keep your comments private, if you're not sure how the equation works, or if you just want privacy, please send me a private message on Twitter, send me an email. I'll do my best to get back to you. If your comment can be seen by everyone, leave it on the comment section on YouTube. Put it onto eToro. I'll do my best to answer you as quick as I can. So there we have it. That's the end of the video. I do hope it has been useful to you, and I do hope that you now realise that by doing nothing, you can dramatically increase your returns. You can dramatically increase your situation. You can let your wealth compound. If you like what you see in the video, please tick like. If you want to see more of these sorts of videos, subscribe. There will be more coming soon. Thank you.